one after the other over a period of about 7 months, I think.
In the kaleidoscope of the 1970s glam rock scene, few names shone brighter than Brian Connelly. His voice, powerful yet smooth, carried the anthems that defined an era. From the thunderous rhythm of Ballroom Blitz to the melodic charm of Fox on the Run, he wasn't just the frontman of Sweet, he was their heartbeat. On stage, under blinding lights and shimmering sequins, Brian seemed unstoppable. But behind the fame, beneath the glitter and smiles, his story was far from sweet. It was a life marked by struggle, identity, and an unrelenting search for belonging. A childhood without roots. Brian Connelly's journey began far from the spotlight. Born in Hamilton, South Lanarkshire, Scotland, in 1945, his early life was marked by uncertainty. His mother, Frances Connolly, was a young waitress who found herself unable to care for him. She left him in a Glasgow hospital shortly after birth. To this day, the identity of his biological father remains a mystery. At just 2 years old, Brian was fostered by a loving couple, Jim and Helen McManus, who raised him in the working-class town of Blantyre. They treated him as their own son, and for years, Brian lived unaware of his true origins. He grew up as Brian McManus, a happy, lively boy who adored football and had dreams of becoming an engineer. But when he turned 18, everything changed. He learned that he had been adopted. For a young man on the brink of adulthood, the revelation shattered his sense of self. Overnight, Brian's world turned upside down. Seeking to reconnect with his lost identity, he reclaimed his birth name, Connolly, in honor of the mother he never truly knew. It was the first of many transformations he would experience in his lifetime. Some fans have speculated about a curious coincidence. Actor Mark McManus, famous for playing Detective Taggart on television, bore an uncanny resemblance to Brian. Rumors swirled that the two men might even share the same father. Whether true or not, it only deepened the mystery surrounding Brian's origins. Finding his voice. Though Brian had once trained as an engineer, destiny had a louder calling. Music was in his blood. His charisma, good looks, and a voice that could shift from velvet softness to raw power made him a magnet for any stage. He began performing with local bands before joining a group called Wainwright's Gentlemen in the mid-1960s. The London-based group was a lively, rotating mix of musicians performing around Hayes, Harrow, and Wembley. Among their early members was a young Ian Gillan, who would later become the legendary frontman of Deep Purple. When Gillan left, Brian stepped in as lead singer, quickly commanding attention with his stage presence and vocal talent. One of his closest allies in the band was drummer Mick Tucker. Their bond went beyond friendship, it was creative chemistry. Together, they decided to chase something bigger. In late 1967, they left Wainwright's Gentlemen, determined to form a band that would shake up the rock scene. The birth of Sweet. In early 1968, Brian and Mick founded the Sweet Shop with bassist Steve Priest and guitarist Frank Torpey. Their first live performance took place at the Pavilion in Hemel Hempstead that March. The crowd might have been small, but the energy was electric. They were vibrant, youthful, and unlike anything else on the circuit. Soon after, they shortened their name to the Sweet, a name destined for stardom. But their early singles, Slow Motion and Lollipop Man, went largely unnoticed. Frustration mounted, and guitarist Frank Torpey eventually left. Still, Brian and Mick pressed on, driven by belief in their potential. Their determination paid off when they crossed paths with two brilliant songwriters, Nicky Chinn and Mike Chapman, the hitmakers behind many of glam rock's most iconic tunes. The sweet sound of success. Chinn and Chapman knew how to write a hit, and the Sweet had the voice and attitude to bring those hits to life. Their first collaboration, Funny Funny, released in 1971, gave the band its first real taste of chart success. At that time, the band brought in guitarist Andy Scott, completing the classic Sweet lineup. Brian Connelly on vocals, Mick Tucker on drums, Steve Priest on bass, and Andy Scott on guitar. Together, they were unstoppable. With their blend of pop harmonies and hard rock riffs, they created something new, a sound that was equal parts catchy and rebellious. Coco, Little Willie, and Wigwam Bam followed, all storming the charts. By 1973, they were household names across Europe. Then came Blockbuster, a single that hit #1 in the UK and stayed there for 5 weeks. Their image exploded alongside their music, glitter, glam, high-heeled boots, and eyeliner. Sweet were icons of flamboyance, standing shoulder to shoulder with T-Rex, Slade, and David Bowie. But while their fame soared, tensions within the band began to simmer. Fame and fracture. Behind the scenes, the Sweets struggled with their identity. The public saw them as a pop act, but the band saw themselves as rock musicians. Their management and songwriters pushed them toward bubblegum hits, while Brian and his bandmates yearned for a heavier, grittier sound. Their frustration became their inspiration. They began writing their own songs, darker, louder, and more authentic. The B-sides of their singles carried these new tracks, foreshadowing what was to come. In 1974, the band released Sweet Fanny Adams, their first self-written hard rock album. It was a revelation, proof that the Sweet were more than a pop machine. Songs like Set Me Free and No You Don't showcased their raw energy. But tragedy struck that same year, the attack that changed everything. One night in Staines, Brian was brutally attacked outside a club. The assault left him with severe throat injuries. The damage to his vocal cords was devastating. His once soaring voice was never the same again. Publicly, the band downplayed the incident, claiming he had a throat infection. Privately, they knew the truth. Brian's greatest gift had been permanently scarred. Other band members began taking on lead vocals, but something vital was lost. The band's chemistry, the magic that had carried them through fame, began to fracture. The fall of a star. By the late 1970s, the Sweet were still successful, but the cracks were widening. Fame, creative differences, and personal struggles were pulling them apart. Brian's drinking worsened, his voice strained, and his confidence faded. During a 1978 concert in Birmingham, Alabama, with Capitol Records executives watching, Brian stumbled on stage, visibly drunk, and collapsed mid-performance. The band finished the show without him, but the damage was done. Their reputation suffered, and Brian's future with the group was uncertain. Later that year, the tension came to a breaking point during the recording of Cut Above the Rest. Brian's health made sessions difficult, and his once commanding vocals had weakened. On November 2, 1978, Brian Connelly officially left the Sweet. The band announced he would pursue a solo career, but those who knew him understood the truth. Brian was a man broken by fame, illness, and heartbreak. A lonely road. After leaving the band, Brian tried to rebuild. He recorded singles like Don't You Know a Lady and Hypnotized, hoping to reinvent himself. But success never came. His health continued to decline, worsened by years of heavy drinking and the aftereffects of his assault. In the 1980s, he began performing with a new lineup, the New Sweet, touring mainly in Europe where loyal fans still adored him. In Germany, he was a hero. His concerts were sold out, even as he struggled to walk and breathe properly. But back home in Britain, he faced financial ruin. The British tax authority demanded millions in unpaid taxes from his Sweet days. To pay his share, Brian had to sell his house. He was divorced, isolated, and barely surviving on small venue gigs. Yet through it all, he never stopped performing. Music remained his only sanctuary. One last comeback. By the mid-1990s, Brian tried one more time. He released an album titled Let's Go in 1995, a heartfelt attempt to recapture the spark that had once made him a star. Around the same time, he found love again with his partner Jean, and together they welcomed a son, Brian Jr. Jean's determination brought an unexpected gift. She helped Brian reconnect with his biological family, something he had long dreamed of. He discovered he had a brother and sister in Canada, and though his mother had passed away, the reunion gave him a sense of peace he had never known. The final curtain. But time was running out. Brian's health was rapidly failing. Decades of alcohol abuse and heart trouble left him partially paralyzed. Still, he continued to perform, even as his body betrayed him. In 1996, A Channel 4 documentary titled Don't Leave Me This Way showed a frail but defiant Brian Connelly, trembling as he spoke, yet still smiling for the camera. Viewers were heartbroken. The once golden voice of glam rock reduced to a shadow of himself, but still refusing to give up. His final concert took place that December at the Bristol Hippodrome. Fans cheered, unaware it would be his last show. Just 2 months later, on February 9, 1997, Brian Connelly passed away from liver and kidney failure, compounded by repeated heart attacks. He was only 51. At his funeral, his daughters scattered his ashes over water. A gentle farewell to a man whose music had once soared like a storm. Legacy of a fallen star. In the years since his death, tributes to Brian Connelly have continued. Fans around the world remember not just his voice, but his spirit, the charm, the energy, and the humanity behind the glam. He lived fast, loved deeply, and sang with everything he had until the very end. Though fame deserted him and fortune slipped away, his songs never did. Ballroom Blitz, Fox on the Run, Hellraiser, they remain eternal reminders of an era and of the man who helped define it. Brian Connelly's story is one of dazzling highs and devastating lows. A tale of a man who gave everything to music and lost almost everything else in return. But for those who still listen, his voice hasn't faded. It echoes through time, a reminder that behind every glittering stage light, there's a human story, fragile, brilliant, and unforgettable.